we have Representative Tapke here today to talk about the student athletes allowed compensation for use of athlete's name, image, or likeness, and a working group established. So welcome to the committee, Representative Tapke.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Well, and so first we have House File 3908, and I will move that the House 3908 be referred to Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. Representative Tapke has an author's amendment, and I will move that amendment, DE2 amendment, to put the bill in the form the author wants. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Representative Quam also submitted an amendment, and do we want? I just want to pause for a minute. Hold on a second. Okay, we'll just move to Representative Quam's amendment. Representative Quam, please tell us about your amendment, and you may move it if you wish to.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. The basic intent is if it's a team sport, the person is there because the team has been part of that success. And my intent is that should be understood and accepted, and that part of the proceeds from that success should be dispersed amongst the team members. And that way, I think it helps team cohesion, and it's just the right thing to do. And then a smaller portion would go towards the scholarship fund in that university, because part of, many of these athletes, they received a scholarship, and this would propagate forward, pay forward to others to be able to succeed and have that wonderful opportunity. And that is the intent of the amendment, and I would move the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Representative Quam. Representative Tapke, do you have any comments about the amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair. As when I walk through the bill and talk about what the bill actually does, and as we get into the bill to discuss, I will absolutely address the concerns of Representative Quam, because I have many of the same as this moves forward. But I ask now that we do not accept this amendment.
Okay, Representative Poppy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I don't know enough about the bill, so I'm not ready to. We've just got the DE2 here, and so I'd rather hear from the author the full explanation about this bill before we would move any additional amendments. So it may come up later. I'm just not ready to vote on an amendment this time.
Representative Quam, did you want to say something? Because I have a recommendation. Go ahead.
Okay,
No, you
I'm fine with pulling it and moving it if it's more appropriate informationally to address the topic.
Okay, so you're going to table it for right now and then bring it back up if you want to. Okay, thank you very much. Representative Tapke, please tell us about your bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So this is a bill. It's often referred to as Fair Pay to Play Act. It was in 2019. It was passed in California in order to get the NCAA to move on working to fairly pay student athletes for their name, image, and likeness. So what that means is if a student athlete would like to, at their hometown, if we have an exceptional swimmer, if she would like to go back to her hometown and have swimming lessons in her name in order to get more students to be able to attend her classes and do courses and do things like that, that she will do that. That's currently not available under the NCAA and the current systems that are in place today. There are many stories about how high-profile athletes are featured in video games, and in those video games that as an amateur athlete, they do not get paid for the university and the systems using their name, image, or likeness in the video games. And so those last on for years and even a decade later. And so these are students who have put in a ton of work, who have gained a lot of notoriety and are working really hard on behalf of the university systems. And then the university is making and the NCAA is making significant amount of money on their using their name, image, and likeness, and that student athlete does not get any compensation for that, does not get any feedback on how that is used. So there are many different ways where this can be utilized and implemented, and it's for creating a fair system for athletes to be able to be paid for their really hard work that they put into it. And so if we refer to the DE2 bill, which is what's in front of everyone today, I'd just like to, Madam Chair, walk through the bill so that everyone can understand what it is. What this bill does is it sets up a framework to push the NCAA to come forward with rules and regulations around paying student athletes. And so there are many questions that are out there as to how this can be implemented, how this can move forward, how, as Representative Kwan was discussing, how students within a team will perform and different things like that. But what we're doing is saying that this is something that we believe in, that student athletes, for a wide variety of reasons, should have the ability to be paid for their playing, since there are a lot of people making money on their name, image, and likeness. And so this sets up the framework of what it would look like, just basically saying that students have to have the ability to get paid and have representation, and it cannot conflict with their sports team contracts as well. And so those things are in here, and I'll walk through a little more clearly. But what we're doing is just pushing the NCAA. It has an effective date of January 1 of 2023. And so what this is saying the NCAA has to move forward and act. There are 15 states currently that have passed or are working on this type of bill. And if we in Minnesota don't do something to help to match what other states are doing, we will be at a significant disadvantage on the side of recruiting. We'll be at a significant disadvantage on the ability to maintain and retain players within the state of Minnesota. And we have to work together to have a system-wide framework. And so the bill, as it goes through the first few subdivisions there, it defines athletics organizations, and just so everyone knows, this is all divisions. This is up and down the scale on line 1.5. That defines athletics organizations, so that's all divisions, so that everyone is treated equally from D3 schools and junior colleges through D1 schools as well. And so then down on line 1.18, subdivision 3, under compensation there, post-secondary educational institution must not uphold any rule, requirement, standard, or other limitation that prevents a student of that institution from participating in intercollegiate athletes from earning compensation as a result of the use of their student's name, image, or likeness. So that's the main crux of it right there. And being able to be paid for those types of things. And then if you go to the next page on subdivision 4, the representation is the ability of that student to maintain representation from as a sports athletic agents and legal representation on that piece. And then subdivision 5 on line 2.24 has team contracts, that nothing that a student athlete does can be in conflict with the team's contract that they have. And then lastly, in 3.4, we head to judiciary from here. Subdivision 6 under enforcement is that if this is violated, there is the student may bring civil action. And so we thought long and hard about that. And there were many, and the California law has the ability to sue the universities for that work. And so we talked about how we want to do that. And so we decided to have it as a civil action to recover damages and receive other equitable relief as determined by the court as to how this gets enforced. And so again, on 3.12 is the effective date of January 1, 2023. This sets up the framework for making sure that the NCAA puts together rules and regulations and draws those lines in the sand as to making sure that the NCAA in paying student athletes for their work in this fair system, make sure that it is equitable for women's sports and men's sports, that it is equitable for in races and demographics, that we make sure that all those things are happening, and we highly expect, and all indications are from the NCAA, that they will be putting together those frameworks and rules that fall within this bill. And this language is very similar to California's bill. And so we're intentionally doing that to make sure that we are not setting up a framework that's different from state by state.
Members, are there any questions? Vice Chair Pryor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So California, so it's modeled after California, and it's in place in California, but then you also said that there, we might be getting behind. Other states are always also moving forward. And do you have information on that right now? States that might be moving forward with similar legislation?
Yeah, there are multiple states who have
Representative
passed.
Krapke.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. There are multiple states who have passed, and there are at least 15 more states that are considering legislation today.
Okay, and if I may ask a follow-up, Madam Chair?
Yes, Representative Pryor.
Thank you. So wouldn't the NCAA just make a kind of a blanket accommodation? I mean, wouldn't Minnesota just be part of what NCAA is doing nationally? Is it, do we have to pass separate legislation if it seems to be that this is something they're doing already?
Representative Tabke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Pryor, yes, you are absolutely correct that there is the NCAA not long after the California ruling, the California law was signed by the governor of California, that the NCAA moved forward and unanimously as a body said that they wanted to have some sort of regulatory framework for paying players. It hasn't really, we don't really trust that that's absolutely going to happen. There was a lot of media and a lot of public relations that was happening in that, and I would feel much more comfortable for Minnesota universities and for Minnesota Athletic Association, athletic student athletes to have that make sure that the state of Minnesota is included in that work, and so that's why we're bringing this forward. And I didn't mention before, but been working very closely with Senator Chamberlain in the Senate on the bill as well.
Okay. Representative Nornis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With California already kind of in the works or moving ahead with it, has there been any, what's happening in California? Is there anything that is happening, or is anybody affected by it, making money by it? I think that's important to know. If it's in theory sounds like it's pretty good, but is it going to be as lucrative as the NBA and these other? I'm just kind of curious. Is there any updates, I guess, is what I'm looking for?
Representative Tabke.
Yes, Madam Chair and Representative Nornis. So California has an effective date as well of January 1 of 2023. This bill is basically a cattle prod to get the NCAA to move forward and to start looking at paying players for their hard work. And so this, nothing has taken effect yet. None of the bills that have been passed that I'm aware of have actually taken effect. This just says that by January 1 of 2023, you have to have something figured out, and you have to have you have to have rules in place for paying players. That that paying players is fraught with concerns, and it's fraught with things that need to have really smart people thinking about and and figuring out how to make it move forward so that it is as fair and equitable as humanly possible. So as Representative Kwan was saying, that it is concerning if one member of we'll say a collegiate football team gets a contract and is making a lot of money, and the linebacker is, or the D line is not really benefiting from that at all. And so what I fully expect and anticipate will happen with this is that there is a framework for equitably sharing those contracts and making sure that across the board that it is fair and that it is positive for all players. And that another good example is this past weekend, about a year ago, there was a UCLA gymnast. There's nowhere to go from collegiate gymnasts up. So she is a big proponent of this work, and because she got really one of those overnight viral, famous with one of her gymnastics routines that she did, and there was nothing that she could do to capitalize on that financially. There was no way that she was able to sell ads on her Instagram feed or whatever she would like to do in order to monetize that overnight success that she had after putting in decades of work. This past weekend, another UCLA gymnast did a routine to a Beyonce song, and also it was somehow, I don't really follow gymnasts in my social media, but it showed up in my social media feed multiple times because it was just amazing. And so she has no way under NCAA framework today of making any financial gain off of that. And so I think that that would be the fair thing to do if that's what she wants to do.
Okay. Representative Norris, did you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay. Representative Rumbeck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wondering how, if anyone's thought about the impact on Olympic, qualifiers and people trying to go that next round up. I mean, it seems like it might sort of diminish the interest, but I don't know. Have you thought about that? If they're getting paid now, at the collegiate level, are they really going to seek that additional fame and fortune, whatever?
Representative Tapke.
Madam Chair and Representative Runbeck, that is an excellent question that, yes, we've been definitely thinking about. And if you follow Summer Olympics at all, Katie Ledecky is she's a fantastic swimmer, and she is a huge proponent of this bill because she was in, I believe it was Stanford, where she went to college, and she was unable as a college athlete to financially capitalize on her extraordinary success that she had in the Olympics. And so she quit college in order to make money as a swimmer and to capitalize and get contracts and shoe contracts and clothing contracts and things like that. But she had to quit college in order to do that, and because she wanted to maintain her swimming. So I think that that is a perfect example of how this will be utilized in the future.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Should we, Representative Poppy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm still not sure if I would support this or not support this, but, I know that as we have people who perform or are participants in college sports, they are student athletes, not athletes who happen to be students. I mean, their primary function should be to earn a collegiate degree. I mean, that's what they're there to do. They happen to have a talent that they are able to engage in while they're a student. But I guess I'm just curious about your thoughts on that and how this transforms a student athlete into being somebody whose emphasis is more on the athletic side rather than the academic side.
Representative Tapke.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Poppy. Yes, I could not agree with you more on that. We want our student athletes to be student athletes, and however, many more times than not, what ends up happening with our student athletes is the athletic side of the program ends up becoming more all-encompassing, especially with the larger sports, of what the athletes are working on and what they're doing. And so there are a myriad number of stories where, for example, football players have no chance of making money after their football career is over, but they've also got knees that are blown out and major injuries and concussion problems and things like that. And they are unable to be as financially well off into the future as they could have been by making money as a student athlete as well. And so there are many things, and I think that we need to really, really look at that as to how we make sure that student athletes are students and athletes at the same time, and not just on the athletic side of things. But that's another one of those issues that I really believe that the NCAA is working on and is making sure that our student athletes are still students and athletes, and not just corporate athletes or anything like that working within the collegiate system. And so there are a lot of lines in the sand that will need to be drawn as to how recruiting, for example. If somebody wanted to, someone in Austin, a student, they were trying to recruit a student to come to a school in Austin, and there's a car dealership that wants to work with the university to get the best possible students. And it's this car dealership, and part of an advertising scheme is putting up, a lot of money in order to recruit students to that college. I don't think that anybody wants those kinds of things to happen. I don't think that anybody wants student athletes to be into the realm of overpaid professional athletes or anything like that. We want them to be student athletes, and what we're banking on is the NCAA will put framework around it to make sure that those student athletes who are putting to create a fair framework where those student athletes who are putting their body, their mind, everything on the line for that university. And there are a lot of people making a lot of money off of their name, image, and likeness to let the student participate in that effort.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is call our testifier up, which is Jeremiah Carter, the Director of Athletic Complex at the University of Minnesota. Welcome to the committee, and please state your name and your position for the record.
Thanks, Madam Chair. My name is Jeremiah Carter. I'm the Director of Athletic Compliance at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. Our office's role is to make sure that the university is complying with all NCAA, Big Ten, and WCHA rules. I've served in this role for the university for the past 5 years, and I'm a former student athlete in the sport of football, and I was a former coach at the university as well. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and give some perspective on this legislation. Like all of you, our first priority is supporting and protecting our student athletes. This is our student athletes across the university system. There are 675 Division I student athletes at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. We have 400 multi-division student athletes at the University of Minnesota Duluth. And between the University of Minnesota Morris and Crookston, Division II and Division III, there's an additional 600 student athletes. In our role as a founding member of the Big Ten and a good standing member of the NCAA, we welcome and will continue to advocate for student athletes. And it's in that spirit that we welcome these conversations around name, image, and likeness legislation. Name, image, and likeness is a complex issue. Ultimately, it's going to require a national solution, not a state-by-state solution. It'll impact both our high-profile student athletes and student athletes from all three divisions. There are 30 NCAA Division I, II, or III institutions in the state of Minnesota. The NCAA governance structure is moving forward with a set of more permissive rules intended to provide uniform regulation in this area. The purpose of these rules and why there are some restrictions is it's intended to avoid any unintended consequences of this effort, including how to prevent undue third-party influences in the areas of recruiting, the transfer process, or in the educational experience of student athletes. The NCAA has publicly stated that there will be new rules ready for membership vote by January 2021 with the NCAA convention, a little less than a year from now, with interim updates coming in April, June, and October of this year. We're closely monitoring these, and we're actively participating in feedback and helping to craft the best legislation possible that works across the spectrum of Division I. We are optimistic that this new legislation is going to provide clarity and guidance and move forward in the best interests of our student athletes. We do anticipate that the NCAA rule modification will be a positive step towards the goals of this legislation. However, the amended policies may not reach the full requirements laid out in this bill. As a result, we encourage you to consider the impact to the university if the new legislation from the NCAA does not go as far as this bill, and what position that would leave the institution in, because it's unclear what punitive steps, if any, the NCAA would take against the institution for following the requirements of this bill. Again, we support our student athletes. We support this conversation around name, image, and likeness legislation, and I'd welcome any questions you have. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions? No, well, I should maybe I should just ask. Okay, members, do you have any questions? We have Representative Daniels.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Tabke, it seems like the there's so many unknowns right now. From listening to the conversation and having Jeremiah do his introduction here, that we don't know what the parameters are going to be from the NCAA yet. We don't know what the rules are going to be yet. And California's is kind of sounds like it's still up in the air. And I did a little Google search, and there's positive, there's negative. Would it be wise to maybe wait on this thing until the NCAA has their rules set up, and then we see if we want to follow that? Because I'm just afraid if you get everything out there, we're still going to have to, if it's different than we think it's going to be for the rules, we're going to have to mend everything after the rules are set. And I just think we're maybe just doing this a little prematurely. Maybe you should wait and see what the rules are January 1 next year, so not that far down the road. That's just my comment, my thought. So if you want to respond to that, that'd be great.
Representative Tapke.
Madam Chair and Representative Daniels, yes, I very much understand what you're saying, but that gets at the heart of what we're working on and what we're trying to do. We need to ensure that we don't know what the NCAA rules will come out to be. We assume that the NCAA rules will come out with a nationwide type of solutions for things, but we don't know that for sure as to exactly what's going to happen. So I believe, and Senator Chamberlain believes, that the state of Minnesota needs to have the framework in place for the NCAA to work within, that sets out the parameters of, we believe that students should be able to be paid for play, and we expect the NCAA to put that rulemaking together within that framework. And so that's why I think it's important that we have a bill to set up that framework and to move forward with it. But I definitely understand what you're saying, but I don't know for sure that if we were to take that route, the state of Minnesota would have a seat at the table.
Well, I'm thinking, it sounds like there's some more work that needs to be done here, and there's questions, and I think that we should table the bill and allow the author to get some of these questions answered. But I do want to take public testimony before that we do that. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to testify? Okay. Just want to make sure it was included. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the author. My thought looking at the bill was, if there's a clause that basically said cannot conflict with NCAA conference or association agreements, guidelines, and policies, just a catch-all that would prevent, us saying that we're allowing stuff that would have you and, the university penalized. The intent of my amendment, and I'm not wedded to the percentages, I just think that sharing with the team, because it's a team sport, and then also contributing to a small portion to the funding of scholarships are very applicable, and I think are reasonable. And so I understand your intent. The ball is rolling, and you're trying to get ahead of what's happening, or have us at least ready. Mm-hmm. And good luck with your effort, but sometime maybe we could have a conversation on a few of these items.
Okay, so with that, we're going to lay this bill on the table. So thank you, members.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.